Okay, empowering morning everyone. Just a few reminders po before our discussion commences.
To change your respective Zoom name with full name / organization or institution.
Remember to keep your microphone mute, especially during the speaker's discussion to avoid interruption.
Next is that everyone is encouraged to open their cameras throughout the program to stir up participation among audiences, particularly during the open forum session.
And also, please be reminded that this forum will be recorded and broadcasted through the official Facebook page of PILG.
And lastly, to our participants, okay, we are not live, so
Okay.
that's all. Thank you so much. Okay.
Empowering morning participants, we officially welcome you all to our forum, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the local governance in 2022 elections. I am Kairil Dayantolete from the Power of Filipino Youth.
And I am Jewel Alefana from the Power of Filipino Youth.
And we are your hosts for today's forum.
This program was brought to you by Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance, Hans Seidel Foundation, and Local Government Development Foundation. Now, before anything else, may I request my partner, Ms. Carol Tolete, to lead us to the opening prayer, to be followed by the singing of our Philippine National Anthem.
As we gather this morning, we invite your Holy Spirit to inspire, guide, and teach in everything that we do today. We give our anxious thoughts and receive your peace. We pray that through your divine guidance, we would learn how to listen attentively to the inputs of our speakers and panelists. May we appreciate their efforts in imparting their knowledge to us. May we interact in the forum and discourse so we could comprehend more about the subject matter of the forum. May we value each other's contributions as building blocks towards harmony and peace. Grant that as we interact with one another, we recognize the fact that all our activities here today should be accomplished for your greater glory. Amen. That in all things, God may be glorified.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhagit pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkaibang namin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you so much for that invoking and well-spoken prayer, partner. To formally start our webinar session, may we call on Commissioner Gwen Pimentel-Gana from Commission on Human Rights and Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance for a welcome remarks. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Good day, everyone. Maayong adlaw sa tanan, magandang araw sa lahat. Thank you very much for attending this webinar series for voters' education. Today, we will be discussing the implementation of the landmark decision of the Supreme Court dated July 3, 2018, entitled Congressman Hermelando Mandanas versus Executive Secretary Ochoa, consolidated with a petition filed by Governor Garcia. The Mandanas-Garcia case was an en banc ruling, hence was the collective voice of the court. The Mandanas-Garcia ruling undoubtedly will have far-reaching effects in local governance in the years to come, since it imposes dramatic increase in the fiscal resources to local government units. Along with greater economic resources at its disposal is the consequent empowerment of the different levels of our local government units. With greater economic power, greater responsibility is demanded from our local government officials elected to office. That is why the discussion of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is very much tied with the election of our local leaders this May 2022. We need leaders who are competent and responsible in the discharge of their authority. Otherwise, the noble objectives of empowering and devolving more powers and resources to local government units will remain but an illusion. We need to elect local leaders who will ensure that the increase in fiscal revenues be translated into the development of their localities and into concrete services that are enjoyed by their constituents, and that every peso spent will be accounted for. We need to elect competent local leaders who have the vision to use these economic benefits to uplift the status of his or her municipality, city, or province so that their constituents need not go to the metropolis in search of opportunities to better their lives. We must not forget that the ultimate objective of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is for local governments to be catalysts in paving the way for a better quality of life for every Filipino, especially those in the fringes of society. Today, we will be listening to experts share with us how the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, if properly implemented, will impact our lives, but more importantly, only if we elect the right leaders in these very crucial May elections. I hope that our discussion will elicit a conscious effort to find ways to elect the servant leaders we so deserve. Once again, welcome to our webinar series on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Thank you and God bless us all.
Again, thank you so much, Commissioner Gwendolyn Pimentel Gana. Now, may we now call on Mr. Alex Raul Jojo Villano, a member of Local Government Development Foundation Board of Trustees, for his opening remarks.
As all of you may have been confused with what transpired last Easter Sunday in that so-called press conference in the Peninsula Hotel, the purpose of this forum is to clarify and not to muddle the issues in the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Before I continue, may I have the honor and privilege to greet
Recording in progress.
Commissioner Gwen Pimentel Gana, Professor Janines of San Beda, Dr. Lorenzo Dinlayan III of the Bukidnon State University, Director Ana Bonagua of the DILG, my colleague in the leagues, Veron Hitosis, Executive Director of the League of Cities of the Philippines, my associates, Dr. Tony Avila and Professor Ed Tayaw, and of course, Mr. Guts Heineke, Philippine Country Representative of Hans Seidel Foundation, whose tremendous help made the first and this second meetings possible. Good morning and happy Easter to all. Today, we continue the second round of our forum on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. After listening and hearing the discussions in our first forum, it now becomes obvious that there is a lot more work that needs to be done, especially for us in the local government units, in order to fine-tune its implementation in coordination with the national government agencies. The task at hand is not going to be easy. But what may be perceived as contentious issues can always be straightened out with the continuing dialogues with our national government counterparts. It is with this resolve that we enter into this second forum in the hope of clarifying issues which may stand as stumbling blocks in the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. We trust that with our partnership with the Pimentel Institute of Leadership and Governance and the Hans Seidel Foundation, Logodef will be able to continue its advocacy on good governance in both the national and local levels. The forum is now open, and may you have a good exchange of ideas today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jojo Villano. Let's now begin. Filed by Congressman Hermelando Mandanas and Congressman Enrique Garcia Jr., all along with other local elected officials, granted the Mandanas-Garcia petitions, both challenging the manner in which the national government computed the internal revenue allotment, or IRA, shares of the local government units.
That's right, Drew. The petitioners pleaded with the Supreme Court to mandate the national government to compute the internal revenue allotment on the basis of the just shares of the local government units based from all national taxes, incorporating the national internal revenue taxes and customs duty. And just like what you've mentioned a while ago, last 3rd of July 2018, the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional the phrase internal revenue that appears in Section 284 of the Republic Act number 7160, or the Local Government Code. This sets the base for the deletion of the internal revenue allotment of local government units.
Yes, Kai, and as the Supreme Court ruled that the determination of the just share of the LGUs should not be based on national internal revenue taxes, but should be based on all national taxes, we arrived at the question, what does Mandanas-Garcia ruling really means, and what is its significance to the local government unit or to their local governance in general? Now, at this juncture, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our first guest speaker. He is the Executive Director of the Pioneer Development Organization for Local Governance, the Local Government Development Foundation, or Logodef. He has worked closely with various government and non-government organizations, developing policies, programs, and plans for the local governance. He had served as an expert in governance in the country and abroad under the auspices of various international organizations such as European Union, Japan International Cooperation Agency, Asian Development Bank, and United Nations Development Program, to name a few. He recently served as the political economy expert for USAID Chemonics, the Liver Mandanas project that assisted the formulation of the Mandanas-Garcia rollout with the national government. He has been a member of the consultative committee to review the 1987 Constitution, the Constitutional Commission that drafted the Bayanihan Federal Philippine Constitution, chairing 2 of its 9 committees. He has written a number of books on federalism, political systems, and local governance, and taught at various universities. He is a fellow at Brenthurst Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa, and before that in Leibniz University of Hanover. And he is also a popular political analyst recognized by the media in the country and abroad. Discussing what is the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and its significance to local governance, let us all welcome Professor Edmund S. Tayo. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you again in this second of series of seminars on the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. First off, let me tell you that we thought of having this in preparation for the coming elections, especially, well, not only for the voters to actually choose rightly who they're going to vote for, both at the local and the national level, but also to impress on those running for office that this is a very important issue, and that it has implications not only for local governments but even at the national government. But of course, unfortunately, we have yet to really hear so much from those running for office to discuss really what they have in mind as far as this landmark Supreme Court decision is concerned. And so hopefully you can help us drum up not only support, but advocate more deeper and more serious understanding, a substantive understanding of these issues and its implications to governance. No? So let me now go straight to my presentation. I will stop my video so as to avoid using so much bandwidth and prevent the cutting of the presentation. And I will start sharing my screen. There you go. Let me stop my video first. All right. So here we are. During the discussions with various organizations in the series of discussions and meetings, of course, it was still during the pandemic that these were all held. I was already reacting to the phrase that was adopted, which is full devolution. I was just using the term further decentralization because we still don't know the end of this devolution or this decentralization that we are still having, introduced in 1991 under the Local Government Code. And we're still actually in the process of really learning so much as far as decentralization is concerned, and how it should impact on local governance. And this is what I'm going to tell you this morning. In fact, when we speak of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, it is part of the whole process of decentralization, which, as I've said, started in 1991 with the enactment of the code. And so it's an evolving development, so to speak, in that as much as possible, we'd like to think that we can reach some level of development using decentralization, so much more than what we already have at this juncture. So let me go to the next slide. Naputol ba ako? Am I still online?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wala yung panel kasi kanina. All right. So let me start with the story of Philippine decentralization. This is important so as to actually put in proper perspective what decentralization is all about, why we're talking about it, why it was introduced, and so on and so forth. We cannot deny, of course, that at a certain stage in our political history, martial law was declared, and that martial law, of course, had not only domestic implications, but also international implications. But of course, that's not our purpose this morning to discuss that. But ultimately, the issue really is about power that the national government wields, and therefore the national political leaders wield. Decentralization is one of those reforms introduced in the 1987 Constitution so as to uh, uh, limit the powers at the national level, and engage and involve, in fact, even collaborate with local leaders, and hopefully result to a more collaborative and cooperative governance and leadership. No? Without, of course, having local government leaders uh, simply follow what the national political leaders would want them to do. So it's not just a political reform, and it's not just a political reform, it is also an administrative reform. No? However, of course, the overall political setup that we have, I no longer call it a political system, no? Because anything and everything simply depends on personalities, as we are seeing, especially these elections. No? Reforms were not sustained, that the purported administrative reform became contingent to political dynamics. And so this explains why local leaders had to resort to filing a case in the Supreme Court, such as the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Just to give you an idea, no, there's a particular section, there's a particular provision in the local government code which prescribes a review of the code. In fact, it says comprehensive review of the code every 5 years. Unfortunately, there has not been any such review. There were reviews undertaken by third parties or non-government organizations like Logodef and other academic institutions, but as to one that is officially sanctioned by the government, not only by the executive department, but including the legislature, to my mind, none has been undertaken. No? So if you look at the code, in fact, the oversight committee involves not only the executive department, but even, but of course, including the national legislature. No? So the Mandanas ruling indicates that the existing mechanism reached the tipping point, that further decentralization is needed. When I say further decentralization, no, to push the envelope far enough to actually become consistent with the provisions of the code. Marami pa ding kulang doon sa actual implementation of the code. Hence, the need to always keep the national government in check in this regard. No? So, bago tayo magpunta doon sa madalit sabi, bago natin i-implement yung Mandanas-Garcia ruling, we have to understand first some basic considerations. Well, because at the end of the day, this is really an effort to correct, no, inherent characteristics of our political setup. What I always call turfing. Both at the national and local level, there has always been some confusion. I don't know if it's just confusion or some limitations into understanding what autonomy is, but it is not the same as independence. I've always underscored this because, in one of the projects that I participated with, EU was reviewing its decentralization program in the Asia Pacific at some point, and we had to choose some areas where decentralization has been really felt. And would you believe, even a barangay was asking us to help them become quote-unquote independent from the municipality. That is not really the intent of the code, and that there's as independence in a setup we have in the Philippines. No, perhaps we can ask participants to kindly mute their microphones. Okay, so when we speak of devolution, it is basically granting of powers to the next level of government. Okay, and should not be taken to mean that responsibilities, that is powers and functions are now completely separate. No, isa ito doon sa mga misnomer. When powers are devolved, it doesn't mean that okay, our hands are off now and you're on your own. Hindi ho ganun 'yon. No, it's basically an offshoot of the principle of subsidiarity. No, the matter ought to be handled by the authority that can handle it most effectively. In other words, you are merely granting the powers to the next level of government because of the concept or the idea that they will be in a better position to implement such initiatives. Of course, at the outset, ang lagi kong example dyan parang pagsakay sa bisikleta o swimming. No? Hindi naman tayo pinanganak na marunong na sumakay ng bisikleta. Hindi naman tayo pinanganak na marunong na tayong lumangoy. Okay? And the only way to learn about it really is to ride the bike. The only way to learn how to swim is to actually swim. Hindi tayo matututo kung hindi natin gagawin yun. But of course, while we're learning things like swimming and cycling, there is someone who's always assisting us at the outset, sa umpisa, and of course it would also be best if in the process of difficulties there is also someone that can assist us. Ganon din po sa governance. There are instances that local governments of course will find the need to ask for assistance with the national government and vice versa. In fact, the national government at times will in fact require the participation, not only participation but involvement, substantive involvement of the local governments. The key here, ladies and gentlemen, which unfortunately has not been emphasized as far as the code is concerned, is the concept of intergovernmental relations. Yun yung dapat nating palakasin, and the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, to my mind, is in fact an opportunity precisely to look into this particular principle, this particular characteristic that is inherent in the introduction of decentralization in our political setup. E tingnan po natin paano ba nangyari ito, bago natin tingnan mabuti yung Mandanas-Garcia ruling, balikan natin yung mga pag-aaral na ginawa dati. Para sa ganun, hindi na natin maulit yung mga pagkakamali o yung mga kakulangan na nangyari nung unang ipinatupad ang decentralization. And this is the reason why I'm presenting to you what has been quite very informative initiative in the study of decentralization. This was done at the time that the code was significantly new to our governance system. So, noong 1992, nagsimula itong tinatawag na rapid field appraisals. Because of course, decentralization is obviously bago yan sa pandinig ng governance natin, ng klase ng paggugobyerno sa atin. So bago din ito, hindi lang sa national level, kung hindi sa local government. So sa umpisa talagang hindi lang pinag-aaralan, kung hindi nagpapakiramdaman pa. So ito yung mga findings nila na hinighlight natin. Noong 1995, halimbawa, it was found out that greater local resource mobilization and improved service delivery. That has been the key development at that time. That's 3 years when the 1991 local government code was introduced. On the other hand, while there had been some improvement, national government agencies had not proactively pursued new roles after devolution. This is of course understandable because as I've said, no, we're just 3 years then, no, into the introduction of a new system of public administration, no. So the year after that, uh, further findings suggest that diversity of experimentation as the decentralization process diffused across all classes and types of local governments and quote unquote deepened into more mature management of service delivery. Unti-unti, we're not saying that at that time, at that juncture, magaling na kagad yung local governments. Hindi. But the study simply has highlighted that there were incremental developments at the local level. No? And further, the year after, there was overall success in decentralization under the 1991 Local Government Code. But a major constraint remained, no? To further decentralized democratic development was the reluctance at the center to change. Okay? So, it was highlighted that in 1998, no, that's 6 years now into decentralization, there was continued success in local governance and local ownership of appropriate national programs. And further, the year after, progressive signs towards deepening of decentralization continue. No? Uh, and of course, there are other findings. Dean Alex, who participated in the first seminar that we had, highlighted that they're also doing or updating this rapid field appraisal, no, at this time. So hopefully, let's see what the results of that study would show us. No, at the end of the day, of course, it's a work in progress. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And coming out of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling further highlights that decentralization is a work in progress. So ito yung pinaka-benchmark natin. Kaya sabi ko, dapat i-consider natin ito, no, sa pag-intindi ng pag-implement ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Unang-una, kailangan nating alamin ano ba talaga yung Supreme Court decision. Ano ba ang epekto nito? Ibig bang sabihin nito binago yung local government code? May mga provision na nabago as a result of the decision. But the main provisions, the main principles introduced in the code still remains. And so to my mind, it remains as the basis of not only understanding but implementing decentralization. No? So what are the key points in the first place? First, it redefines the determination of the LGU share from national revenue. No? It does not revise the whole local government code. What we have to understand is that, when we speak of the redefinition of the share of LGU share from the national revenue, we have to understand that the budget is from a single pie. It cannot be that another pie will be created, no, or another budget setup will be created in order to meet the implementation requirements of the landmark Supreme Court ruling. No, it should not be another pie to support the increase. So having another pie simply means, having a bigger share, having a bigger slice of the pie. Okay, as much as possible, it should not result to a significant increase in the national budget, in the overall budget, because that does not address the problem particularly of overlapping of functions, which to my mind is one of the culprits in the unfunded mandates. No, so this is the reason why I would rather call it a further decentralization and not full devolution, because we still have yet to find out, what is the full extent of devolution as it is provided for in the code. Now, the implementation will still have to be based mainly on the local government code. No, let's not be confused with the new issuances. It supports the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, but the main reference remains the local government code. What are being devolved, ladies and gentlemen, should be functions. Ito yung dapat nating i-emphasize. It is functions that are devolved if we follow the local government code clearly. But in the process of devolving these functions, okay, our reference are the PAPs, the programs and the projects, which are actually the ones which are budgeted, no? Dahil madadagdagan yung budget sa baba, may mga PAPs na kailangang ma-discontinue o ma-reformulate, no? Nang sa ganon, pwede nang i-implement sa baba. Kasi ibababa yung pera eh. So pag binaba mo yung pera, natural, may mga PAPs na kailangang ibaba. Yun ngayon yung kailangan nating i-strategize. Paano mo ibababa yung PAPs para maging consistent doon sa pagdagdag ng budget. Okay. Isa ito sa mga naging usapin, o isa ito sa mga iniintindi ng mga eksperto. One of the studies raised the issue of vertical imbalance. But to my mind, it can be managed. Why? Well, first off, we have to understand that the perspective and the approach at the national level when we do policy making, when we do budgeting, is different from the local level. Why? It is sectoral. Budgeting is done by agencies. This is mainly because the scope is broader and of course the resources available are considerably more. So, iba yung vantage point, iba yung considerations when you formulate programs and projects at the national level. So, in a nutshell, the priorities are therefore different at the local level as the considerations are different. The approach likewise is expectedly different as the scope is considerably limited but more specific. So the purview at the local level would be significantly different from that of the national level. The orientation and the circumstances are different. The capacity is significantly lesser at the lower level, but this can be remedied. Not overnight, but starting with them actually performing the functions now given to them. And there are strategies to remedy this inherent limitation. That's why I highlighted various infrastructure projects, for example, used as an raised in the study that I'm quoting here. If you look at the highlighted part, it illustrates that if we download some of these infrastructure projects, ultimately there will be bigger share for the provinces and there will be less for cities and municipalities. Example lang po ito nung pag-aaral, hindi pa ito yung mismong implementation. Ang strategy po dito, kasi whether we like it or not, local governments are, we have very fragmented local governments. I've always been raising this. We have very small municipalities. If we compare our local governments with other countries, huwag na tayong lumayo. I always compare the Philippines with Indonesia, for example. Did you know that it's only 1/6 of Indonesia? Okay, 15.4% of the total land area of Indonesia. In other words, Indonesia is significantly bigger than the Philippines, but Indonesia only has 33 provinces. Ilan po ang probinsya natin? Nadagdagan pa recently. Okay? So, ilan ang munisipyo natin, ilan ang cities natin, In the end, what I'm trying to say is that, there are so many initiatives that whether we like it or not, cuts political boundaries. Nag-o-overlap yan. What can be done in order to strategize, kumbaga, hindi natin talaga mai-implement exactly kung paano ini-implement sa taas. Pag binaba natin, what can be done is to have the local government units plan together so that issues or projects like infrastructure, for example, can be strategized as a common initiative or a common project. This is also an opportunity for us to remodel or reconfigure our planning process. No? Instead of a top-down approach where all plans emanate from the national level. No? I'm sure someone is going to correct me. No, Prof, meron namang plans coming from the local level. That's true. But how much of these plans actually reach the national level in the form of the funding with the GAA? No? Sana ngayon talagang honest to goodness joint planning between LGUs and the national government, no? And more importantly, with and among the LGUs themselves. Again, precisely because, development cuts across political boundaries. Okay? So, yun yung pwede nating pag-isipang mabuti dito. In other words, what I'm trying to impress and bring to your attention is a concept of integrated governance. Okay? To my mind, these are the keys, or this is the key moving forward in making the most of the landmark decision. Let's take note of the unique characteristics of each LGU, especially that a good many are in fact coastal. There are key challenges. And as I've already mentioned earlier, the lack or the weakness of intergovernmental relations, fragmented LGUs, and weak planning. The mainly steering function of the national government can now facilitate the development and institutionalization of the implementing function of the LGUs. I was corrected, no, by the way, by former Mayor Mary Jane Ortega of San Fernando, La Union, in the sense that what she's saying is, steering and implementing always comes together. I agree, but again, to a certain functions, whether national or local, is best undertaken together. No? Kumbaga, meron talaga kailangang close coordinate. And so, as I have been in start with planning, ito yung pinaka-importante dito. It is the key to the success of the rollout, establishment of the Committee on Devolution at the regional level. It's been the point that highlighted, no, in the series of discussions done by the different national government agencies in formulating the rollout. Ultimately, it should promote interlocal cooperation. Okay? So, let me give you further recommendations. Basically, where intergovernmental relations and planning serves as the key. Let's do a benchmark. Tingnan natin, asa na ba tayo ngayon? And with understanding in the benchmark, let's now discuss what's as far as determining how much they're devolving functions as originally provided for in the local government code. What is being devolved, if I may repeat, are functions. The PAPs are the offshoot of the functions. In the performance of the functions that are being devolved, of course, is through the PAPs. Hence, the PAPs are also being downloaded. Now, hindi naman lahat yung mga PAPs naman sa umpisa lang talaga sa umpisa palagi naman yung problema niyan eh. But eventually, of course, when the local government units have already really absorbed the devolved functions, then it would now be easier really. No? Kasi syempre ngayon mahirap dahil yung mga PAPs originally were formulated at the national level. At katulad nung diskusyon natin kanina, I was explaining that the way it was formulated at the national level is different compared to how it may be implemented at the local level. So ultimately, PAPs cannot be absorbed originally as it has been designed for implementation at the national level but can still be implemented at the local level if joint planning can be undertaken. The existing law should be reviewed and revised accordingly, starting with fragmented local government units. In other words, ultimately, this experience, particularly the result of the landmark Supreme Court Mandanas-Garcia ruling, should now really serve as a reminder to our leaders. Let's now actually do a comprehensive review of the code and really push for a much delayed of the code. Our previous slide yung reality, hindi lang kita lamang ng iisa. Reality is comprehensive. Okay? At the end of the day, the system is fundamental. It has to be reconfigured. It has to be designed in such a way that it can allow us a more holistic approach. Hindi pwedeng magdidebate tayo palagi, uy, mas magaling ako kaysa sa'yo. Baka naman po pwedeng magkaroon ng pagkakataon na mag-usap yung mga stakeholders at makapag-strategize tayo kung paano natin gagawin yung proyekto na makakaganda talaga particular local government unit, the way by which we maximize, no, optimize, no, the of the landmark Supreme Court Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Sana po magandang umaga po.
All right. Again, thank you so much, Professor Edmond Tayo, for that elucidation as to what the Mandanas-Garcia ruling meant, as well as its underlying significance towards the aspect of the local governance in the Philippines. Further decentralization, this has been the description of Professor Tayo on the implementation of Mandanas-Garcia ruling. The devolution or autonomy that is being pertained does not mean full independence. It is more on granting power to the next level of the government. He also introduced that it is more of an integrated governance, which is a key moving forward and making the most of the landmark decision. And we ended that he said system reforms ultimately is fundamental. I think, Kyrell, we have another guest speaker.
Yes, thank you so much, Drew. Now, moving forward to our next esteemed guest speaker. He is a senior economist and financial specialist with extensive experience in the financial and development planning, budgeting, and implementation of development and capacity building projects in different sectors. He has advised national and local government agencies in the areas of public finance management, local government development planning, budgeting and finance, revenue generation, resource mobilization, and financial management. He served as the fiscal decentralization expert in the local government finance and fiscal decentralization reform program, an economist or public financial management expert for the European Union or EU supported Philippines Health Sector Reform Contract, the third EU funded program to support the Philippine health sector reform agenda. He likewise served as a local government unit PFM or budget consultant of the second health sector policy support program from years 2007 to 2010, and the chief economist of the National Tax Research Center of the Department of Finance, and then subsequently became the LGU Finance or budget specialist of the USAID supported ARD or Governance and Local Democracy Project from years 1997 to 2000. Prior to these, he served in the Department of Finance for 20 years and served as a consultant to Bureau of Local Government Finance, Bureau of Local Government Supervision of DILG. Currently a part-time faculty member of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Valenzuela Graduate Studies, here with us in discussing the implications of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, let us all welcome Dr. Antonio Avila. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Joel, for the introduction. With your indulgence, I would like also to close my camera and of course, I would like to request Joel or Diane to please share the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. Okay, so my topic for today would deal on the following. What is the impact of the national government, especially national government agencies? And what is the role of NGAs in the implementation of the Supreme Court ruling? And how should the NGAs engage the LGUs in the implementation of Executive Order 138? And what are the issues and concerns in the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling? And the next would be how to move forward, and what is the imperative on the part of the national government working with LGUs, and of course the LGUs working with LGUs, like the provinces and the municipalities and the barangays, and what are the expectations from the LGUs. To discuss within this topic, the question would be how should LGUs work with NGAs to implement the Executive Order 138, and how should provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays work together? What is the role of each of the level of government in the implementation of the executive order? Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Okay, here are some of the NGA actions to implement the Supreme Court ruling. For fiscal sustainability, the devolved functions must permanently be taken out from the NGAs to empower the LGUs to assume them. And this is, of course, in order to avoid further fiscal deficits on the part of the national government. NGAs will do the steering. Of course, Sir Ed discussed about the steering here, while LGUs will do the rowing. So I think that's the comparison between steering and rowing. And the existing PPAs of NGAs will be slowly phased out to avoid service delivery gap until 2024. And no new PPAs which are within the realm of devolved functions will be proposed or implemented by NGAs starting 2022. NGAs will conduct capacity building to prepare LGUs to assume the responsibility of implementing the PPAs to be transferred to them. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some of the examples of the funds or of agencies. This is more or less estimated to be devolved or given to the LGUs based on the 2021 appropriation. And this was estimated by the CPBID. And here are the biggest you can see is the Department of Public Works and Highways with around 280 billion pesos. Okay, so the total here for all the national government agencies estimated by the CPBRD equal to around 452 billion pesos. Next slide, please. Okay, I would like to discuss with you some issues and concerns regarding the implementation of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. One is about of course, the Department of Finance said that tax revenue losses from the pandemic-induced economic slump, the rise in debt to fund our COVID-19 responses, the looming revenue impact of our economic recovery measures, and lower spending efficiency as a result of the Supreme Court decision to expand the share of the LGUs must be adequately addressed by the next administration's economic team. So in preparation for the next administration. While in the case of the CPBRD, the CPBRD said in the study that while the ruling's effect is straightforward, greater amount of resources for LGUs implementing the work functions, there are concomitant and equally important issues that NGAs need to contend with. Foremost is the rolling effect on the national fiscal situation. And of course, there are also concerns on how the intended outcomes can be achieved as the NGA transfers to LGUs some of the PAPs or PPAs as it continues to perform despite being devolved functions. Of course, the efficiency as well as the effectiveness of implementation of the NGAs compared to what the LGUs would be doing would be, of course, raises some questions. Next slide, please. And according to the Department of Agriculture Undersecretary Fermin Adriano, the most important task is how to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of national government agencies whose services are devolved to LGUs. As you would say, in the case of the Department of Agriculture, this not clear delineation of the functions that are devolved to some of the to LGUs. And of course, according to Sorsogon Governor Escudero, who is now running for senator, the cost of the full devolution of services mandated by EO 138 would be twice as much as what LGUs are entitled to receive from the national tax collection. And it said that there is a big gap between the increased internal revenue allotment or national tax allotment and the increased cost of newly devolved services, with resort still having insufficient funding. And the additional sum of 225 billion expected to finance other development projects, but let us take note that there are projects related to housing, to health, services, sanitation, etc., which of course would mean that the extra money would probably not enough to fund the huge appetite for development projects in poor local provinces and municipalities. Next slide, please. So again, let's go back to what the DA Yusik Adriano Fermin said, that the disposition of the IRA for capital outlays is left in the discretion of LGU officials. What if the LGU executives decide that those extra funds, instead of being spent for agricultural projects, should be used to build forest complex, barangay stations, health centers, etc., and rather than improving roads in populous barangays and so on. So I think this was the concern of the Yusek Fermin in view of the local autonomy of the LGUs. Then I think we have to take note of a very important development for next year because the tax revenues declined by 11.4% in 2020. And this means that the national tax allotment will also decline by around 11.4% on average next year budget. So in order to do that, then I think there is a need for a capacity building on revenue generation or resource mobilization, fiscal management, emphasizing to be conducted by the Bureau of Local Government Finance and of the Department of Finance. And I think I would like to mention here a very huge amount, which is around 23.6 billion for indigent senior citizens and the implementation of the Republic Act number 10868 or the Centenarian Act of 2016, which the function which would be transferred to the National Commission of Senior Citizens from the DSWD. Will this be devolved also to the question there is, will this be also devolved to LGU, the amount of 23.6 billion? I think that's a big question mark as far as the amount as the social pensions concerned. Next slide, please. Now, I would like to emphasize that the Supreme Court ruling, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, only affected the section in which the base of the computation of the share of the LGU is concerned. So it increased the base from internal revenue collections to include all national tax collections, including the collections of the Bureau of Customs. And of course, the allocation of the IRA or the national tax allocation was not affected. So of course, it's under Section 285 actually of the local government code. And you are let us recall that the distribution of the national tax allotment now would be among provinces 23%, cities 23%, and municipalities 34%, and so on. And uh, among provinces in cities, municipalities, and cities, the share of each LGU will be distributed based on population, land area, and equal sharing. So again, I would like to emphasize that this was not affected by the Supreme Court ruling. And so what's the implication of that? It means that whatever the defect of the internal revenue allotment, there are several studies that were undertaken before, and it shows that there's a lot of vertical and horizontal problems regarding the distribution of the share of LGUs from the national government coffers. And the next issue is about the matching of the NJA devolution transition plan and the LGU devolution transition plan. How do we reconcile the DCP of NJAs and LGUs? And what will be the role of the private sector? What is the optimal cost sharing among NGAs, provinces, cities, municipalities? Again, if we are going to compare or match the transition development plan of NGAs, would it would it be would it correspond to the devolution transition plan of the LGUs concerned? So I think the details will be very problematic. And again, there's one issue here that I'd like to raise is regarding the impact of the Mandanas ruling on the private sector. Next slide, please. Okay, in view of the question of how do LGUs do regarding the devolution transition plan. Now, I came across about a approach taken by the Department of Agriculture, and I think I would like to share with you because I think it's a very good approach and strategy for NGAs to engage the LGU. And the Department of Agriculture and the Secretary there formulated what they called as the province-led agriculture and fisheries extension system. As we know, there are some problems regarding extension problems because the extension services are mostly devolved to LGUs, particularly municipalities. Okay, and so the FAFIS addresses the long-standing challenges in agri-fishery extension, especially the need of an institutional arrangement to integrate and strengthen extension services at the provincial level. So the provinces are in a better position, according to DA, to plan and implement province-led agriculture and fisheries extension programs because they have the economies of scale, they are and not too small like municipalities or cities or too large like the region, and are closer to the realities of small farmers and fishers from a wider perspective and can provide sustained annual budgets to improve the livelihood of the small farmers and fisheries. By the way, this package, you can download it. The operations manual, you can download it from the DA website. Next slide, please. So the package shall be established by the Department of Agriculture, regional field officers, and the API, and the DA Bureau of Fisheries, before regional officers with concerned staff bureaus and attached agencies, and it also includes issues and also the provinces and this also supposed to be in partnership with the private sector organizations. and also rural-based organizations and farming and fishing communities. Uh, Generally, the national government, according to this approach of the DA, it shall guide and do the steering while the LGUs do the rowing in the implementation of PAPI as one of the principles adopted in the in this devolution strategy. And they will co-plan. So I like to emphasize it would co-plan, co-invest, co-implement, and co-monitor priority projects in the provinces, particularly as they embark on commodity specialization to maximize comparative advantages. Okay, next slide, please. So here is how DA would do that. So first one is the phase one preparatory activities, organizational arrangements, and so on. And of course, most important is the conduct of the stakeholder consultation workshop. And phase two would be establishing the PAPI. And this should be endorsed by the Sangguniang Panlalawigan and approval of the governor. And there will be signing of MOA among partners, the provinces and other issues and other partners, and DA, of course. Then in phase three, we would have to establish now the PAFI center, and of course, it could be anywhere. I mean, establishment of the PAFI office, which would be part or maybe within the provincial capital or any other area or building. And phase four will be the mapping out of the process of mapping out CPA, FEF, and adapting the interventions of the PCIF and other plans, so the provincial community investment plans, and of course, the certain strategic support. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is the co-financing scheme according to the DA. So the PAFIC developed, remember, between the DA and PLG negotiates in terms of implementation. Then you have the MOA, and then you have now, based on the plan of the MOA, then we'll have it will also include proposed funding or for the counterpart for the provinces and for the DA and probably municipalities involved. And I don't know if this could also include the barangays, but most probably not. And the release of funds based on submitted work and financial plan, then I think one of the important components here is the monitoring and evaluation. Okay, and the submission of progress report for monitoring evaluation for renewal funding for the next cycle of planning and implementation. Next slide, please. Okay, actually here is the log frame for that. Okay, so we have the long-term outcomes, the activities, and so on. So this are this is part of the operations manual, and the details of this could be downloaded from the website. And I think I'd like to emphasize about the output. Here, the province-led agriculture and fisheries extension systems established. Second is collaborative provincial agriculture and fisheries extension program developed, and there will be co-financing arrangement. However, I don't know whether it will be 50% for DA or 50 or whatever. The ratio here not yet clear, but it could be negotiated probably. And of course, it also includes capacity building by the Department of Agriculture, probably by the Agricultural Training Institute. And of course, you have the integrated digital platform for advisory services established. So these are some of the outputs of the FAPI as per the log frame. Next slide, please. And I would like, in line with the, of course, we are after the elections. I think the incoming LG officials, we need to revise or revisit the comprehensive development plan. Okay, and of course, there will be some trainings to be conducted by DILG, LGA. But I would like to cite here the guidelines prepared by the DILG, particularly the Bureau of Local Government Development, regarding the preparation of the Comprehensive Development Plan Plus. Now, why Plus? Because Plus, the CDP plus guidelines include already about it integrates already climate change and disaster risk concerns and the comprehensive development plan. Most often, this climate change were not considered before in disaster risk. So this time with the CDP plus, the ILG said that it will now be included as part of the updating of the CDP or crafting a new CDP for the next 3 years. And this guide also can be downloaded from the ILG, the ILG website, discusses the context and framework of planning in the Philippines, including a harmonization framework of the CLUP and CDP mainstreaming of BRRCCA. It is consistent with the 5 steps process of CDP illustrative guide by the ILG, like organizing and mobilizing, reviewing existing plans, revisiting the LGU vision, preparing the ecological profile, then preparing the local development investment program, and of course, the implementation instruments. And these are all included as part of the CDP plus guidelines of the DILG. Next slide, please. And here's the process. Okay, the diagram of the process of the DILG CDP plus, which I think LGU should take note, and of course, including the other stakeholders. So this time, it already includes, if you take note, that it includes already the preparation of the space and also, of course, disaster risk reduction management in the CDP. Next slide, please. Okay, what's the way forward here? First, the the EO details the importance of vertical and horizontal linkages across different levels of government in development planning and investment programming and budgeting. LGUs must follow the guidelines in the preparation of the CDP as indicated in the LGILG manual. And this will entail a lot of coordination, cooperation, and linkages among the levels of government, NGOs, and the private sector, as well as the participation of the civil society organization. Probably, if this would, of course, in most LGUs or provinces, which are such a bulk of agriculture sector, you can please take note of the approach undertaken by DA. It could be a good model on how NGOs and LGUs can work together. And of course, I would like to, there are some issues or some concerns whether there's a need really to reformulate the IRA. I agree. There is a need for it, but probably it's too late now. It could have this reformulation of the internal revenue allotment could that have been undertaken way back before, even before the release of the Mandanas ruling. You know, even in as I think as early as 2014, I think many experts have been pointing out already that sooner or later there will be this Mandanas ruling will come out from the Supreme Court. But of course, there were some proposals to reformulate the IRA, but it was not undertaken. And the thing is, Congress was not immediately engaged early in the formulation of the strategy to implement the Supreme Court ruling. So we missed the opportunity actually. And I would like to emphasize that BILG has already undertaken a lot of studies about how to reform and provide the resolve the weaknesses of the IRA formula. And in fact, I learned that there is this mother of all IRA study undertaken by the department, by JICA, in behalf of the Department of the DILG. Okay, so, but of course, the main thing here is LGUs will not accept any reduction in their shares unless there is a really unmanageable fiscal deficit as provided for in the local government code. So we have to probably, we probably have to see another opportunity, how we're going to reformulate the idea. Of course, there is that growth equity fund. Okay, but next slide, please. It's a okay. There's a growth equity fund by the as provided for in the Executive Order 138, but unfortunately, since it's just an executive order, it does not bind Congress. Okay, so uh, so the growth equity fund, I think I heard that the proposed the proposed amount by BBM was around 10 billion, but only 1.25 billion was approved by Congress in for 2022. And I think this highlights the fact that, of course, especially with the with the problems and fiscal space, then there the this gross equity fund. I don't know if it becomes a significant factor later on in solving the inequalities among LGUs as far as the share of LGUs is concerned. And probably one of the things forward is to how do we institutionalize some provisions of the executive order by enacting a law and by this incoming Congress after the elections. And probably, as I said earlier, probably we should have a growth equity fund, which is a fixed amount. And by the way, I I came across about the issue of the black grant of the barn. Black grant of the barn is equivalent to 5% of the internal revenue collections of BIR plus the collections of the Bureau of Customs less the internal revenue shares of LGU. So meaning to say that they have already, of course, that was passed in 2019, and there's already the Supreme Court decision regarding the Mandanas ruling, and so Congress has already included it in the computation of the 5% development of the black grant. But the question there really also now is what is the impact of Mandanas ruling as far as the barn law is concerned? If we deduct the entire amount of share of the national tax allotment of LGUs, there is the possibility that the black grant might decrease, or there is that amount which should be less than what is to be expected without the Mandanas ruling. And the Mandanas ruling closes the gap between information and decision. It provides various opportunities for collaboration. So I believe that the Mandanas ruling will ignite the interest of CSOs to actively participate in the local governance efforts, according to Regional Federation of CSOs President Victor Emmanuel Osaraga. Then, lastly, I would like to say about the mantra of fiscal decentralization, which we said says that finance follows function. And we have been pointing this out right after we saw some weaknesses in the local government code regarding the sharing of the revenues, as well as the source of revenues of LGUs, as well as those that were devolved to the LGUs. So, but then this mantra of the fiscal decentralization, was not again followed this time. I believe that we have committed the same mistake that we experienced earlier with the passage of the local government code, although at much lower scale. That is simply because of the fact that executive order did not adhere to the mantra, of course, the finance follows function, which means that the real problem now is how do we make LGUs adapt whatever the PPAs that will be given to based on the devolution transition plan that will be given by the national government agencies to LGUs. I would like to emphasize that local government has the as the authority to decide where their funds will go. So this means nandyan na yung mga pondo sa kanila, so it's up to them whether, but I hope whether we follow the PPAs of the government agencies, or of course, if there would be some sharing, probably entice them to adopt it. But I hope really that in the preparation of the comprehensive development plan, then LGUs would again be able to use properly the additional funding. And again, I would like to cite a World Bank comment that says that the Mandanas ruling might provide some or make uh, some LGUs, or there might be some understanding of LGUs, especially because of the lack of capacity to implement. Okay, thank you very much.
Again, thank you so much, Dr. Antonio Avila, for that prolific discussion concerning the implications of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. And a few key takeaways po. This includes that the national government agencies will be doing the steering, while the local government units will do the rowing. But then again, they should go hand in hand with one another as the devolution strategy for the so-called Devolution 2.0. And there is also an extensive need for capacity building on revenue generation, resource mobilization, and fiscal management to be conducted by, of course, the Bureau of Local Government Finance. And we also have an underlying task on how to clearly delineate the roles and responsibilities of national government agencies whose services are devolved towards the local government units. And we also have questions raised. I believe that how do we reconcile the DTP of the national government agencies and local government units, and at the same time, what would be the role and impacts of the Mandanas-Garcia ruling in the private sector? And again, are we really committing the same mistakes in terms of the fiscal decentralization? Now, to further shed light on the subject today, both on the first and second discussion, the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, its significance to local governance, and its ostensible implications, may we now call on the panel reactors.
For our first panelist, it is with our pride to present to you the League of Cities Executive Director, Ms. Veron Haitoses. Let's give her a virtual round of applause.
On behalf of Ms. Veron Hitosis, I'm Miki Montero, representing the League of Cities. So I just have three main points. Promoting interlocal cooperation. Even before in past congresses, we have always been encouraging the bills to implement policies, projects that encourages interlocal cooperation, mainly because of the funding restrictions. Basically, when we have many people funding for a common cause, makukuha natin yung end result. Best project for this initiative would be related to solid waste management and climate change initiatives, since yung investments, equipments needed for such projects require a huge amount of funding. Second, maganda po yung nasabi kanina, highlight yung planning ng LGU and NGA, because yes, most of the time, both parties have solid projects. Yet, when implementation comes, different interpretations na. So, hindi na nagiging harmonized yung project. So, maybe the Mandanas-Garcia ruling is really a call to have better, clearer coordination, not just on paper, but also on the groundwork, on the realities of the projects, the people that will benefit from such projects, and last, I also have a question on how do we reconcile NGA-DTP between LGU-DTP. Now, in our previous engagements, our mayors have always been raising the issue that there is a vast disparity between between the increase brought by Mandanas-Garcia and the volume or amount of services being devolved to us by virtue of the EO 138. Now, our humble suggestion is that to include the cities, particularly on issues relating to health, environment, and education, so that at least while there are other sectors which is also equally important, there are three sectors that is being, how do I call it? Parang being supervised from top to bottom, uh, even on the small details, include the LGUs on those three sectors malang. At least as we are all in the birth pains, nagsisimula pa lang naman ang Mandanas-Garcia ruling this 2022. So at least check na po ang ating kumbaga improved basic services delivery dun on three sectors already. Second, sunod ko dun is yung targeted approach. While we all have good projects, good initiatives, we also have to take into consideration that our resources are still limited. Hence, the best strategy for the League of Cities is to have a targeted approach. Gradual nating i-increase. Let's find a better solution gradually kaysa wala po tayong mabigay na improvement on all sectors. Kami, yun lang, since the start of the pandemic, we are appealing, focus on education and health. At least on those two, very good na po ang cities on education and health, very good kami. So, targeted and gradual. Yun lang po yung next na parang comment and sana po call also sa national government agencies to help us also lobby with cities. Meron po kayong na-mention kanina, sir, on PAFES. We were also requested to make a comment on that. Ganun din po yung clamor namin. We agree on it is a good model. Yet, ang proposal namin is to focus first on agri-fishery heavy cities. And then, mag-improve tayo, and then we increase, and then we increase, and then we increase. So at least every 3 years, or let's say 5 years, padagdag yung beneficiaries ng good model natin. At the same time, we're also improving na yung good model na nung PAFES, may improve na siya kasi mako-consider na natin yung actual challenges na na-raise from the ground pataas. And ito po ang pinaka-importante for the League of Cities. With the Mandanas, sinabi po ito ng aming president, much is expected from the LGUs. Actually, the Mandanas-Garcia parang serves as a double-edged sword. It's a momentum, yet it will also drag the cities kung wala silang capacity to develop, to absorb yung services being devolved to them. So, we encourage the NGAs to help us cities, as for my representation is quite limited only to cities, help us also to improve our local capacity gradually and continuously. Yun po kasi yung nakita namin na nawawala from previous years. May captive on first, second year. Nag-iiba ulit yung tone on the third year since magbabago na po ulit yung term. So we call na sana sustained siya, continuous yung captive. Madaming factors yung Mandanas. Ang dami kong pwedeng sabihin na factors na makaka-apekto on Mandanas because meron daw decrease ng collection by 2023, 2024 as per COMDEV. Pero yet, meron namang mga additional funding na makukuha. So, malaki pa siya. Parang ang nakikita pa lang natin as of now, as of this time, very small portion pa lang of the supposed impact of Mandanas-Garcia ruling. So, sana dahan-dahan while we implement it this year, dahan-dahan din yung CapDev, yung assistance to the cities, para po sana ma-reach natin yung ambition 2040 natin na matatag, yung kompleto na. Yun lang yung call for the League of Cities. Recognize also yung gradual transition. This is a policy that affects 360 lahat ng basic services delivery ng city. So sana dahan-dahan din. Conservative implementation would be the most recommended strategy for the cities, lalo na po meron pa kaming issue, sir, on the growth equity as beneficiary and also on the population. So at least dahan-dahan pero sigurado yung implementation natin. And yun lang po ang aming comment. I would like to apologize for Miss V's absence. Meron lang po nag-conflict na meeting. But rest assured na lahat naman po ng comments came from RED Veron. Maraming salamat po.
Again, thank you so much, Miss Miki Monterde. Speaking on behalf of Miss Veron Hitosis from the League of Cities Philippines. And now, heading towards our second panelist, it is with our pride to present to you the Director of the Department of Interior and Local Government and the Bureau of Local Government Development, Miss Ana Bonagua. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes po, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting the ILG to this event. We have very good speakers, si Prof. Tayo and si Sir Tony Aguilar. Hello sa inyong mga sir. Actually, sir, siguro I'll run through the discussion. I have 4 points which I would like to highlight in the discussion. Has been discussed. Sorry, sir, may mga background noises. Can you hear me well? Okay lang po ba? Okay, sige. Unang point, actually, yung point ni Prof. Tayo, yung decentralization is a work in progress. Decentralization is an
Sir, medyo dito na madinig. Maingay yung background.
Can you give me a minute? I'll transfer to another location.
All right, I think since Ma'am Ana Bonagua is still transferring, let's first have another panelist for today's discussion on Mandana's ruling and the local governance in the 2022 national elections. It is with our pride to present to you the Dean and serving as the Student Services and Coordinator for the DPA program from Bukidnon State University, Dr. Lorenzo Dinlayan III. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Hi, Jewel. Thank you very much. Am I loud and clear?
Yes.
I suppose I am. Thank you. I'm having 4 meetings, but of course, this is one of my priorities since Professor Edmond Tayo has chatted me like weeks ago. Thank you very much, Professor. And the rest of those 100 people, exactly 100 people on the virtual room, my good morning to all of you. And I can see here Miss Carol, our partner of the Hans Seidel. I can see here Mom Clarice, our partner of Pimentel Institute here. And all, I would also like to say hi to all my students, both in the graduate and undergraduate of Bukidnon State University. Hi and hello. Thank you very much for joining us today. Of course, and to our speakers also earlier, thank you very much for, of course, thank you for allowing us to express our thoughts as well. So this is just really gonna be short. It's not really so much, I don't want to ruin with what the speakers have shared to us earlier. Rather, this is an administrative manifestation of my thoughts. Maybe not necessarily representing the academe or from Buksu, but these are my personal thoughts. And in fact, earlier, I've been chatting Professor Taya because I'm afraid I might not be able to give my thoughts. But nevertheless, I'm happy that I'm done with my first interview, so I might as well give my thoughts. First, this is nice. This is good, especially to the classes A and D, who have the access, no, to all platforms, social media, no, from all sorts, from the intellectual discussions such as this. We have all the opportunities to interact and to understand. But I think my more concern really would be the great and or the adverse effect of this Mandanas ruling or the change of system. You know, ladies and gentlemen, professors and my colleagues, I would say that in every change, there will always be resistance. It will always be about resistance, and we cannot change that. Rather, we need to address on how these changes, no, could either be accepted by the general public, acceptance, and at the same time, what could be the effect eventually, especially to classes C, D, and E. Ayan ang pinakamarami sa atin. So I was telling Professor Ed earlier that I thought that apart from this intellectual exchange of our thoughts in presenting all the aspects, no, the intricacies of the proposal, we need to have this cascade. This is our challenge, and probably we are not only challenging the ones facilitating this program, but I think this is also our challenge, our part, the 100 people present here, 102. We cannot just leave it to Professor Tayo, no, and the rest. How many of us are only, trying to listen to televisions and all? But I thought that this should be well understood in the simplest way possible to the different social strata. How can classes C and D, for example, understand? What benefits, for example, will they have once this particular proposal take place? I mean, this is general. I mean, in a democratic country, it cannot only be that the 5% in the upper class would only understand this, that only in the academe would only be able to understand this. But this is our challenge on how we can, at the same time, exchange thoughts with our classes D and E, classes C, D, and E at that. So these are, I would say, in fact, in Northern Mindanao, particularly in the public administration, of course, we started with our students. And then we go forward, Professor Ed, to our extension programs, to the different communities on how this can practically be driven to them. No? Okay, this is important. And then I thought at the same time that the preparation, I think this was overemphasized earlier by Professor Ed, on how our local government units, our officials, our LGU officials, how we can prepare them in three aspects. In terms of, first, knowledge. How much information, how much knowledge do they know about the change of the system? For example, the implementing agency and other CSOs, for example, how much trainings, how much workshops have we done, have we afforded to our LGU officials as the ones really implementing this? Will, for example, after the elections, this is my challenge again, will after the elections, for example, they will be doing this, anong tawag nitong, for example, newly elected officials training, where I was also one of the speakers, no? This only happens 3 days, Professor Ed. 3 days. Are these 3 days even enough to capacitate our, of course, you know the answer, what the answer is. So that's a challenge even to our implementors. That's number one, knowledge. Number two, skills. In terms of skills development, in having this implemented, in having this run, no? Because we can never just have this implemented and take it back. Ayaw pala namin. Mahirap pala tong Mandanas ruling na to. No, we have to understand, and this cannot be understood even for months, not even for a year. No, we have to live with it. We have to constantly adopt the principles along with it. So that's number two. Number one, the knowledge. Number two, the skills. And I think we forgot the third aspect, really, particularly on our local government officials, on the attitude, the value, the appreciation of it. Because it cannot only be that we are only being compelled. Our LGU, I don't know, I hope our LGU officials are with us. It cannot be that we only feel compelled to do this simply because we are elected. But I thought the principles of these proposals should be imbued in the hearts and minds, no, not only of our people, but it should start from our officials. What this is about. No, we need to live with it. We need to adopt. We need to understand that more than what the government does, what the CSOs and other institutions are doing for us to become capacitated, then they should also do their part in really, doing beyond, going beyond what the government, what the CSOs and other institutions are providing them. So these are just my simple reactions from a common tao, Jewel, and the rest of us. And I hope that especially our students, and I'm specifically addressing at the same time a challenge to us all. Number one, just to wrap it up, number one, it's the challenge on cascading. Number two, it's on preparing our officials who are the prime implementers of this proposal on knowledge, on skills, and appreciation of value. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Again, thank you so much, Dean Lorenzo Dinlayan, for that reaction. Now, we'll go back to Miss Anna Bonaga if she's around.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me well now. Thank you very much for inviting the ILG. I heard very good presentation from Prof. Ed Tayaw and Sir Antonio Avila. They have been our partners and our expert advisors in the DILG. So I would just like to focus on some few points which we do really subscribe and agree. The ILG do really subscribe and agree. First of all, decentralization is really a work in progress. Devolution is an evolving development, as mentioned by Prof. Ed. It is actually part of our continuing efforts towards local autonomy and local empowerment. And it started with the enactment of the local government code, and even until now, alam natin, we're still in the process of devolution and decentralization. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin fully devolved or fully assumed by local government units those list of to be devolved or devolved functions as provided under Section 17 of the local government code. And even the succeeding laws that further devolves new functions and responsibilities to local government units. Marami pang LGUs, especially the smaller ones, that has to be capacitated in order for them to fully accept, assume, and implement those functions. Second point, Mandanas ruling did not change the entire local government code. It may be able to solve, and it will not be able to solve all the problems of local government units on resources, on capacity, on effectiveness of service delivery. It just merely redefines the determination of the LGU shares from the national revenue, with the inclusion of the collection of the Bureau of Customs in addition to the collection of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, which was previously only the basis for the shares of local government units, which affects or increases the shares of local government units by 30%. Now, across the board, the Mandanas ruling did not change the formulation in sharing and distributing the NTA to local government units. So the previous inequity na sinasabi natin, which resulted from the ERA formula, is still there and may probably further further aggravate the inequity happening right now kasi mas lalaki yung resources ng mas malaking local government units at mas maliit din lang ang increase kasi percentage increase yan ng mas maliliit na local government units na mas maliliit na nakukuha ng NTA or ERA before. So, ganun, paring hindi, kasi baka akala ng lahat na Mandanas ruling will be able to solve all the problems of local government units and in local governance. Third point, autonomy is not the same with independence. No? It's napakagandang point by Prof. Tayo. Devolution is just granting powers to the next level of local government units, which can best deliver the services to the people. But it does not mean independence from the next higher local government units or the national government for that matter. There still need to have a collaboration, coordination, and maybe probably layers, hierarchy of authority in the implementation of the functions and services to the constituents. No, pag hindi na kaya ng smaller local governments, they can ask the help of higher, which can support eventually, even even with this Mandanas ruling and this what we call campaign for devolution, it will not actually prevent national government in supporting local government units whenever it is needed for the national government to support. Third point, yung intergovernmental relation and planning is key. No, ito yung amin ding pinupush sa DILG, that there's really has to be very close coordination, especially now that there are greater resources at the local level, that there has to be greater coordination between national government and local government units so that there will be seamless delivery of services, that national and local government will have harmonization of direction, of strategy of implementation. And there has to be also a hierarchy of somehow responsibility across local government units, that we have always been saying that higher local government units should exact accountability and should exercise their oversight functions over lower local government units, provinces over cities and municipalities, and cities and municipalities over their component barangays. And right now under EO 138, no, the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, where there has to be adjustment that has
Si Director.
Mukhang naghang si Director Ana.
I think Miss Anna is having a technical problem. To all our panelists, first, if you wish to ask questions to our speakers with regards to their discussion, to have your further refinements, you can proceed, Miss Nikki and Dr. Dinlayan. If you have any questions, po. So while we are waiting, there's a comment on the chat box. For the first two speakers, I think there is a need to factor in political dynamics within the local governments, particularly on the implementation of the DTPs and subsequently the PAPs. Often plans, programs, activities, and projects are derailed because the local chief executives do not have the support of the legislative councils, or worse, the barangay leaders, because they belong different political parties. That's from Uriel from Cagayan. Ayan, there's a comment, another comment. Okay, wala na po pala. For our next part, we will be. If you have any comments po with regards to that, Mr. Tayo and Dr. Avila.
Sige. Actually, I saw that comment and I was about to respond to him through the chat box, but I understand there's this open forum. Kasama talaga yan, hindi naman natin maialis yan eh. Pero hindi din natin mailalagay lahat yan doon sa DTP. Normal or the official rather, what's this initiative, and the output of course is the official document. National government agencies with respect to the PAPs. Yung sinasabi po ninyo ay tungkol na doon sa actualization o implementation nitong mga DTPs. At kasama talaga yan sa political dynamics. Pero Depende kasi yan sa local chief executive. I've seen so many local chief, I've worked with so many local chief executives who were initially elected with nary member of their council on their side, no? Pero eventually in such a way that they will be convinced that, especially in the case of what's this transitioning, no, under the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, affected yung image mismo ng local government unit, which is not only the local chief executive but also includes the council and even the barangay. So yung buong LG yung affected dito, no? So political strategy na 'yan ang pinag-uusapan natin, no? Yung DTPs ihiwalay natin 'yon, no? Ang importante dito magkaroon ng opisyal na pagkakataon ang dalawang level of government, the local and the national government, no? Official engagement, so to speak, for the purpose of coming out with the plan to effectively roll out the Mandanas-Garcia ruling. Now, the implementation, as discussed in the two presentations and also highlighted in the reactions, no, will now be part of the rowing, no, or the implementation at the local level. So yun, depende na kung paano sila I'm sure, of course, in the process of formulating the DTPs, hindi naman pwedeng yung local chief executive lang ang involved dyan. Certainly, mai-involve ang council dyan and even the barangays. The barangay, most especially, is represented in the council. So I'm inclined to think that that's all part of the process, no? And therefore, the strategy of the local leaders would be very significant.
All right, thank you so much.
Joel,
Yes, po.
Joel, may I add regarding that? Because, by the way, thank you for the question. And if you take note that I have cited the approach undertaken by the Department of Agriculture regarding this. First, they have mobilized all the stakeholders. I mean, in the extension system. And after mobilizing all the stakeholders, then they involved the Sangguniang. The MOA will have to be signed or to be approved by the Sangguniang and of course by the mayor. And of course, it also involves because it's important. This is important because when it comes to funding, it is very important that the Sangguniang will also be involved. So here, the political aspect already of that has been part of that when they have taken that. And of course, the participation of the civil society organizations would also play a significant role here. Thank you.
All right, since Miss Ana Bunagua is now back, we can have her again for the continuation of her panel reacting.
Pasensya na po kasi nakikigamit lang ako ng venue, no? I'm outside. I'm in another training right now, so pasensya na pinatayan po ako ng power dito. Okay, siguro where I left off, no? So yun yung apat na points. Regarding the implementation of the Mandanas ruling via Executive Order 138, yes, probably the term full devolution might not be accurate, no? Dapat is further devolution, further decentralization. But I think what the oversight agency, particularly DBM, meant with that is that those projects more on the national government, no, projects being implemented by national government agencies along the devolved functions of local government units should be fully devolved to local government units. Siguro yun lang what it means, and that local government should fully assume the devolved function as provided under the Local Government Code, Section 17, and the succeeding laws that were passed after the Local Government Code. Yung tanong siguro ni Sir Avila, Sir Tony, which should come first, how the DTPs of national government agencies and local government units can match. Actually, napakahirap po, no? Even with the exercise that we did, no, we assisted local government units to prepare their DTPs, and likewise national government agencies prepare their DTPs, because parang it's a question of chicken and egg, no, which comes first. But actually it was good that local government units were able to complete their DTPs, 99%, 95% at that, no, provinces, cities, and municipalities, with very good compliance among local government units. Natakot siguro sila na walan sila ng NTA kung wala silang DTP. But then, no, we cannot withhold the NTA, the era of local government units, for any reason. So we have a very good compliance, 95% compliance of local government units in their DTP preparation, and we're doing the analytics of the DTP submitted habang dapat ini-implement na nila starting this year. I think it's good that the LGUs were able to complete first, because they were the ones who will be able to determine the the strategy of national government on how to assist local government units. It was the local government units that were able to set first the phasing. This will be our phasing based on our resources, capacity, and development direction. The national government should address this. And the national government, in fact, has not even listed the PPAs, the PAPs that we're talking about to be absorbed by local government units. There has not been any official document stating the list of PPAs that will have to be devolved by, or will have to be assumed and to be scaled down by national government agencies, no? Except for the guidance ng DBM's NGAs, guidance ng DILG or DBM in the local budget memorandum, pero walang specific list of projects that has to be absorb. So kung yung sinasabi na ano ba yung na-absorb na PA, wala. Actually, dapat walang ganon, because what we want LGUs to absorb and to fully assume are the functions and services as stated in the local government code. So the PAPs supporting the implementation of those functions are just strategies in implementing those functions and responsibilities. The LGUs, magagalit sa akin ng national government agencies, may or may not accept this. If these are not along the development direction, not within their capacity, not within their priorities, pwede nilang i-discount, hindi nila i-absorb yan, di ba? Hindi kasi 1:1, no? While the NTA is 1:1, everybody receives the increase. Yung projects is not 1:1. So may mga LGU na makaka-receive ng anlaking irrigation project which the LGU might not be able to maintain, sustain. Some LGUs will not have. So hindi po siya ganon. So right now, I think what we're banking on the DTPs of the local government has been submitted to us. It's now with the DILG. It contains the status of assumption of the devolved functions of each local government units. No, makikita namin doon ano ba yung inabsorb na nila noon pa, even prior to the Mandanas ruling. So we have that data right now, and we also have the data on the phasing of assumption within 3 years, kasi the EO says 3 years, but I think the transition may go beyond 3 years. But we have that information right now, which among the services LGUs are readily capable to accept, and which those that they delay for the second year and the third year because they might be needing capacity building and assistance from national government agencies. The DTPs also contains their plan changes in their OSSP, or organizational structure and staffing pattern, how much personnel they need, anong changes sa kanilang organization which has to be adjusted in order to fully deliver the functions that are given them. And next is most especially yung capacity development requirements of local government units. Nakalagay doon, ano yung capacity development requirements that they need, that national government should provide them in order for them to fully assume, fully implement the functions. And ito na yung nakikita namin na pinaka-importanting resulta o nakukuha namin sa DTPs of local government units, because we will flow this to the national government agencies to adjust their strategies for capacity building to local government units. So nakita namin, well, initially we did a rapid pass. No? Marami sila, no? Hindi pa namin tapos yung aming analytics of the DTPs. But then nakikita namin na ang laki ng capacity gap ng local government units as they perceive it, no, as they requested assistance sa agriculture, Yun yung hinihingi nila, no, in one region that we tested. Ang parang na-left out sila in terms of capacities and knowledge on agriculture, that they listed a number, very voluminous number of capacity building on agriculture. And the local government units, from the findings, the rapid assessment that we did, are comfortable implementing infrastructure, local infrastructure project, because they have been doing that for a long time, but they might not be ready in implementing big, huge infrastructure projects, such as probably bridges, big irrigation project, and the like. So nakikita po siguro namin, it's really, during this period, there should be really very close coordination between national and local government units, and across local government units, provinces, cities, municipalities, and even barangays. No? The devolution process is iterative. As we learned from what local government units need, the national government should adjust their capacity building intervention, maybe delay for a while those functions or PPAs that they wish to be devolved or they wish to be handed over to local government units in view of the capacity requirements that has to be implemented at the local, because before they fully accept those functions. And the local government code even provides that even with this devolution, the national government is not prevented in providing assistance and support to local government units via programs. Kaya nga po, no, after 30 years, marami pa rin PAPs ang national government supporting devolved functions of local government units, because the national government see the need to develop support programs to local government units. At tama po yun, no? Yung programa as per se ngayon, as they are designed to be implemented by an NGA, not by local government units. So it has to be adjusted based on the requirements of local government units. The transition to full devolution based on the EO is 3 years, but we think in PILG, based on our analysis of the DTPs of local government units, initial analysis, it needs beyond, or it needs longer time beyond the 3-year period. So siguro titingnan natin po yung implementation natin. So I think for now, that's all I can share. Marami pong salamat, and thank you for bearing with me.
Again, thank you so much, Miss Ana Bonagua, for sharing your reaction regarding the discussions of Professor Tayaw and Dr. Avila. Again, to our panel reactors, if you wish po to ask questions to our speakers for further refinements, please proceed po.
Kai and Ju, let me take off from Director Ana's reaction. No? May i-highlight lang ako. At ito aaminin ko na kay Director Ana nung may mga meetings na ako ay naandun at nakikinig. Sana nung nagkaroon ng interagency series of meetings, I know you know what I'm referring to. Unang-una, kayo na ang nanguna. I understand, of course, primarily budget issue kasi ito So kaya DBM. But sinasabi ko ito publicly kasi alam po ninyo yung national government agencies, medyo meron din silang discussions din ginawa bago nagkaroon nitong rollout. And I'm glad that Director Ana is with us here now to clarify na at least na with the DILG there pag-intindi ng Mandanas. Kaya ko yung PAPC doon nanggaling yan doon sa mga diskusyon na nakapag-participate tayo. Pangalawa, Director, I'm sure you'll also agree. Sana pagkatapos nitong maha-highlight din yung mga career na ganitong importanteng mga meeting, yung formulation talagang malaking effect kapag katulad ninyo na nakakaintindi talaga sa baba ang magpa-participate. So yun lang, that's my reference basically when it comes to emphasizing that there's a need for NGAs to work closely with LGUs. Kasi yan naman ang talagang ultimate strategy for the NGAs to work with LGUs. Salamat sa comments ninyo, Director.
Um, may I just give just an update, Prof?
Sige, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Recently, actually, we had a meeting, DBM and the ILG had a meeting because DBM is asking the ILG how they can enforce or ensure that local government units absorb the function, or not the function, the PAPs that they will be scaling down at the national government level. Well, we made it clear that in the DTPs of local government units, there's no list of the PAPs. The list that were given to local government units to be the basis for the DTPs are the list of functions under Section 17 of the Local Government Code and the other laws. No? Those naka-specify lahat yon. But there's no list of the PAPs. We told them, anong hinahanap nyo na i-absorb nila when in fact it was never given. You never gave us the list. You never, the national government agencies were never ready with the list because hindi pa rin tapos yung coordination nila with the local government units. But kaya sinasabi natin, it's good thing that nauna ang local governments to finish complete their DTPs while the DBM is still reviewing the NGA's DTP. So the NGAs now will have to adjust based on what the LGUs indicated in the DTPs. Kasi mahirap yung chicken and egg. So I think yun yung that will clarify now. They know that wala talaga yung mga PAPs because in the first place, there's no list that was given. So now we have to adjust our strategy at the national level on how now to complement the needs and the requirements and the capacity level of local government. So siguro po, after this, yun na yung track. And I think we have made it clear with DBM that alam naman nila because they're signatory to the JMC as well. So there's no PAP list. What the DPPs contain are really roles and responsibilities under the local government code and other laws. Thank you.
Magandang update yan na Director Ana, no? Kasi siguro ang inabutan ng ibang mga LGUs katulad din ng inabutan ko yung merong initial kasi na listahan, and I understand also that some agencies have requested, no, that some of these PAPs medyo i-delay yung pagbaba. So siguro yun yung reference nila. But I'm glad really that this is how it turned out, no? At least mas madali siguro na mas strategize kung paanong strategy, no, kung paanong pagbaba nitong PAPs.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tayaw and Ms. Ana Bonagua. If you have any comments po, Dr. Avila, you can proceed po.
Yeah, may I, of course, I would like to ask permission. Can I ask questions kay Director Ana?
Yes po.
Director Ana, are you there?
Sige, sir.
Yeah, I think regarding this, although EO 138 says that there is no effect on BARM as far as BARM is concerned, about the EO Executive Order 138. So BARM is not covered. Okay. However, there is this concern about the possibility that the block grant would decrease. Simply because if you recall under BARM law, organic law, it is 5% of the block grant is 5% of the internal revenue collection plus DOC, less the share of the internal revenue, share of LGU. Now, if we did that, the big amount of national tax allotment, mas malaki na kasi yun, diba? I mean, ang base kasi parang parehas lang in terms of sa block grant, di ba? Pero mas malaki ngayon yung ibabawas mo na share ng LGU. So in effect, it will decrease the base of the 5%. Has there been any study about it? Thank you, Director Ana.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, but I think I got your point. Pero siguro, sir, we have to do the simulation with the Department of Finance. Actually, on my end, I'm not very much or part of that discussion in relation to the BARM implementation. But I think, yes, kung 5% of BIR and the BOC collection, since the BOC collection is now part of that total MPA, there might, I don't know how they will adjust that not to affect the collection or not to affect the percentage for bond.
Thank you, Director.
All right,
If
thank
I
you
may
so
add,
much. Okay. Please proceed po, Prof. Tayo.
Doc Tony, no? Kasi meron din tayong involvement dyan sa BARM, no? Kahit paano. Una, hindi sila directly affected ng EO. Actually, sa decentralization naman, at in fact sa lahat ng galaw with the national government, ang daan yan kasi sa IGR. May IGR mechanism kasi na talagang nakalagay sa Bangsamoro Organic Law na wala sa local government code. No? So, umpisa pa lang doon, nasundan ko kasi yan kasi BTC pa lang naandun ako sa pag-formulate ng Bangsamoro Organic Law. Ngayon, doon sa pag-compute niyan, papasok din yan doon sa at siguro naputol yung diskusyon kasi mag-election sa susunod, no? Now, mas mauuna yung interpretasyon OL kesa doon sa EO kasi yung EO eh. No? Inabutan ko doon sa diskusyon. So sa madalit sabi, yung implementation ng EO, which means ultimately yung sharing na apektado sa implementation ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling, ang mag-a-adjust doon sa BOL in the same manner na mag-a-adjust doon sa local government code. Natatandaan kong reference niya.
All right, I think that's all.
Thank you, Sir.
Thank you so much, Miss Nikki Monterde. Speaking on behalf of Miss Veron Haitoses, Miss Ana Bonagua, and Dr. Lorenzo Dinlayan III for that very substantial and insightful point of clarifications and supplementary discussions concerning our subject matter. And thank you so much also, Dr. Avila and Professor Tayo for responding to other clarifications. Now, proceeding on the next part of our program, the last, the public open forum session. Before we begin, please be reminded of the following open forum reminders.
If you wish to ask questions during the open forum session, please raise your hand and wait for the hosts to entertain your questions. Also, you may send your questions directly to the program hosts through private message or message it directly on the Zoom conference chat box.
You may also use the chat section to react and give an opinion concerning the open forum discussion, but please remember to keep your comments and statements relevant to the assigned topic.
If you wish to ask a question on a particular speaker, please state or mention it upon sending your queries.
And lastly, use appropriate words and be in proper behavior at all times. Respect the speakers and panelists by listening attentively to their responses and discussions. So if you have any questions to all our audiences, 100 participants here at Zoom conference, please send it on the Zoom conference chat box or raise your hand. Well, thank you so much. Right, I think we still don't have a question.
I hope there will be questions, especially from the students of Dr. Enzo. You know, I'm sure eventually there will be CapDev programs all over the country. And the only way by which all this can be facilitated and provided is through state colleges and universities, through local experts. So in this regard, I hope some questions may be varied, no, from our participants.
Yes, Professor, if I may, no, some of them expressed also to join tomorrow. There would be a session
Okay.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Many would really wish to join, especially with the topics that you have presented, but many expressed to join tomorrow. But I suppose, Professor, that some of them might also be here. So I challenge the Bukidnon people to also challenge our speakers, whatever your thoughts are. This is for free.
We have participants din Enzo, no, also from Gensan through Ma'am Bevs. I understand that we also have participants from I don't know, from Cagayan de Oro and Davao, I think. No, apart of course from our for our participants here in Manila.
Right, and we also have Professor and the rest. We also have professors, no, and instructors from the different campuses of Buksu. No, I saw earlier who commented Yami Daod. No, so encourage you all to please interact with our speakers who are here. No, mga mahal po to sila. So let's take advantage at this time to interact with them. Thank you.
All right, please send your questions po through Zoom chat box or raise your hand if you have any questions. Students from Bukidnon State University of Dean Dinlayan. All right, I think they don't have any questions for Mr. Tayo and Dr. Avila. Okay. Once again, thank you so much po to our
Former
esteemed
Deputy
speakers.
Secretary.
Yes po.
Naglalaga, no? I also would like to acknowledge again, no, the presence of former Deputy Secretary General of the League of Provinces, no, our member of the Board of Trustees, Alex Raul Jojo Villano. So marami tayong mga experts actually. So yeah, of course there's going to be a session again tomorrow afternoon. So siguro baka bukas kayo gustong magtanong, no? But if you have any questions, you may raise them now, or there's anything to add, Sir Tony, Sir Jojo, if you want to add anything.
Meron na yatang
I think we have one
Yeah.
from Dean. Ayan po. Belle would like to ask. Ayan po, si Miss Belle.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to ask, on should a shift to the federal government really is necessary, given that the LGC, our local government code, already covers the local autonomy of all our local government units, and then if there is such a need for this shift, isn't the local government code enough, or should the local government code needs improvement, or there's a need for us to improve it and not just go directly to the assumption that we are in a state of needing another form of government to start with? That would be all. Thank you.
Unang-una, anyway, siguro unang-una, no, yung federalism kasi, Miss Bell, hindi naman, well, if you look at the the whole treatise, if I may call it a treatise, or the whole initiative, it's not just changing the relationship between the national and the local level, no? Kasi when dati kasi pag pinag-usapan natin yung federalism, puro concept lang eh. no? Ngayon, meron na tayong konkretong draft, no, ng Philippine Federal Constitution na hindi natin kinopya lang kung saan-saan. In the first place, when we proceeded drafting the bayanihan draft of Philippine Federal Constitution, diniscuss na namin kaagad na hindi po pwedeng kokopyahin mo lang yung sa Germany, kokopyahin mo yung sa Britain, halimbawa, or wherever, no? And there are also federal democracies that are not necessarily decentralized. One good example. So sa madaling sabi, dapat aralin nating mabuti ano yung bagay sa atin. At yun nga ang ginawa natin. Now, kailangan pa kasi unang-una, yung constitution natin ngayon ay unitary. Yung ay isang batas hango sa konstitusyon. Lahat naman ng batas hango sa konstitusyon. Meaning, it can change at any given time. In fact, if you are going to look at the political dynamics that is due to the kind of politics that we have. Kaya nga hina-highlight ko kanina, hindi ko tinatawag na political system eh. Kasi puro personality lang naman ito. So pag nagpalit tayo ng presidente, depende kung anong orientation siya sa LGU, lamang yung decentralization masusunod. Kung hindi siya supportive sa LGU, malamang hindi masusunod yung decentralization. So, ganun ka depende sa pagbabago ng politika, babaguhin yung saligang batas or konstitusyon. Pangalawa, pag hindi mo binago yung konstitusyon, ang functions mo, ganun pa din, depende pa din sa national. Kasi, yun nga, i-devolve mo lang ibababa mo lang yung batas. Samantala, kapag ka nag-federal ka, meron kang sharing na tinatawag, sharing of functions. Kaya nga may tinatawag na shared sovereignty. Sa madalit sabi, may mga functions, may mga poder, may mga powers that the national government cannot just take from you, take from the LGUs, precisely because it's part of its provided for in the Constitution if we are going to be federal. But there are further reforms that are required. And tama ka, no? Kailangan baguhin mo yung local government code. In fact, it's not just the local government code that requires amendments. We have to reconfigure the whole country in such a way that there should be a strategy to amalgamate local government units. Yun yung dinidiscuss ko kanina, no, na ang liliit na mga, our provinces on average only has 250 square kilometers, which is only as big as counties in other countries. Did you know that we even have a city that is only 25 square kilometers? Although the example that I'm giving you is a very old city, original city ito, yung Vigan. No, pero lumiit ng masyado, naging 25 square kilometers lang. Can you imagine how small that is? And I'm sure, of course, you've seen how it is in Metro Manila. Tatawid ka lang, iba na yung uniforme ng traffic enforcer. Kasi masyadong fragmented yung mga local government units. So there has to be a strategy by that in some way there are some basic functions that cannot be fragmented as LGUs are fragmented. Waste management, traffic enforcement, no, disaster risk reduction and management, and so on and so forth. So mahaba, medyo tatagal lang diskusyon natin if I'm going to give you details in this regard. But the answer to your question basically is yes, as much as possible, we still need to shift, no, so that we can ultimately change the overall setup, the system of government, no, and essentially institutionalize the powers that are downloaded to the LGUs, and most especially empower the regional areas. Magkakaroon ka kasi ng meso level na tinatawag, no, mid-level yun yung strategy mo to amalgamate your fragmented LGUs. The installation of a regional government will allow provinces, cities, and municipalities to work closer together as a region.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Tayo, and thank you so much, Miss Bell, an MPA student from Bukidnon State University, for your question. There's another question, no, Kyrel?
Yes, there's another question from our participant, Miss Abigail Escano. What if there are barangays, especially those in the far-flung or remote areas, can hardly do their respective barangay devolution transition plan? How can they be assisted po?
Ano yata si Director Ana Daga. DILG has the local government academy, but as I've said, national government cannot needed, the capacity development needed to ensure an effective rollout of hence webinar series to engage, advocate, learning centers and local experts, to help in the capacity development.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Escano, for that question. Dr. Avila, do you have any response po to Miss Escano's question?
Yeah, in addition to what Sir Ed has said, I think it would be good to contact the MLGOO of that particular municipality. Kasi sila yung usually tumutulong eh. And I suppose that sila din yung nagkukulit ng mga DPPs ng mga ng mga barangays. No? So of course, with the assistance from the municipality, no, probably yung lang, saka MPDO or MPDC, so or the mayor probably. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Avila, for that response. If you have any questions po, let's count. All right. Thank you, Dr. Tayo and Dr. Avila, for clarifying the question. If you have any questions po, last call before we end the program. All right. We have Anderson Villa. You can open your...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes po, yes, audible.
Good morning. Greetings from MSU Jensen. I'm a colleague of Professor Beverly Garcia. Prof. Tayo, actually, it was Ma'am Beverly who invited me and my students to join the webinar today. And currently, we are having classes on policy design. Actually, I just brought in them here to listen to your very profound presentation, especially on the challenges of you mentioned. Medyo hindi ko na nabutan yung last part, no, yung integrated governance. That especially yung mga LGUs natin, no, mostly are in the coastal areas, and in our earlier discussion with my students, yung concern is how do we ensure yung implementation ng Mandanas ruling, kasi iba-iba yung mga medyo varied yung mga areas ng jurisdiction, no, ng mga municipalities. So another problem is yung perhaps at the political science perspective, yung issue about corruption, no, which is really happening at the local level. And parang ang problema yung anticipated siphoning of funds. Okay ba yung ano ko, sir? Medyo mahina kasi yung internet. Meron kaming power blackout.
Maliwanag. Maliwanag naman, Sir Andy.
Yes, Sir Edmond. Yung concern ko yung ang worry is in the process, baka in the end, parang yung mangyayari sa LGU, if they are not guided at the onset, parang magiging yung mga funds nila, it will be like a sort of a problem in terms of allocation kasi papasok na lahat yung malaking funding no sa LGU. So paano kaya yun? Ano mangyayari na mahihirapan yung mga citizens at the local level in ensuring na yung funds for social services, public works will be properly implemented. Yun lang po, sir. Thank you.
More political yung question mo, Sir Andy. Ano? So,
Yes.
sagutin na natin yan. Siguro mas optimistic lang ako sa iyo, no? Pero unang-una marami naman kasing parameters, no? May mga batas na kailangang sundin. Hindi naman porke nadagdagan yung tawag dito pondo or resources at the local level, pwede na lang basta gamitin na lang ng kung paano nila gusto gamitin yan. Hindi naman ganoon ang mangyayari diyan, ano? So in fact, meron ngang requirement no na ilang percent yan, Sir Tony, yung development fund.
20%.
O 20% nila. At 20 ba 25? Anyway, basta merong
20. Development.
merong required percentage na sa overall budget mo, hindi pwedeng puro personnel services yan. Hindi rin pwedeng MOOE. So gano'n ano. So hindi po pwedeng basta magasto lang kagad. 'Yon. Pangalawa, meron ka pang ang DTP na gagawin. So yung dagdag na pondo na ibababa sa iyo, dapat consistent doon sa decentralization transition plan mo. Hindi po pwedeng basta kukunin mo na lang at gagastusin mo. Pangatlo, tama yung sinabi mo, iba-iba yan eh. Kaya nga ine-emphasize ko kanina, hindi po pwede na kung papaano dinesign at finormulate yung programa sa taas, ganun mo din i-expect na mai-implement yan sa baba. Iba-iba, katulad nung nabanggit kanina, no? At nabanggit mo din yung mga coastal areas, lalong-lalo na, kailangan iba yung strategy mo. Iba-iba yung kanilang mga requirements and therefore, iba yung kanilang priorities. So hindi po pwedeng dekahon yung pag-implement mo ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling. So kaya nga kailangan mo ng decentralization transition plan. Yung corruption, hindi mo naman naalala ko meron tayong presidente dati, no? Hindi niya ma-pronounce yung alleviate. Kaya ang ginamit niya eradicate. Sabi ko nga magkaiba yung alleviate sa eradicate. Okay? So kailangan mabawasan mo yung corruption at kasama dyan yung strategy nga na may mga batas na kailangan sundin kung paano gagamitin yung pondo. In fact, it is a way to control, it is a way to monitor the the expenditure. Pero to tell you frankly, it also impacts on the effectiveness of governance at the local level. Kasi minsan hindi na siya regulation restriction na yung lumalabas. Okay? Kaya napakalaking bagay nitong decentralization transition plan. So anyway, tama yung punto ninyo, kaya nga sana magkaroon ng close partnership between the national government and national learning centers like universities and other academic institutions or institutes for that matter with local universities like you guys, no? Kasi mas alam niyo yung babae. Ganun din yun, no? Yung na strategy, yun din yung gawin dapat natin na strategy for capacity development.
Thank you, sir.
May I respond to that? Thank you very much, Sir Andy, for your concern about corruption. When the local government code was being enacted, and I was still with the government, and the internal revenue share of local government is being discussed to increase from 20% to 40%. And I remember one of the political leader have said, and distributing it to provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays this time, no? In barangays. So, and said, one of the political leaders said that now we are democratizing corruption. So, and I think it will exacerbate the situation because of bigger funds. So it is important for us to work in order to prevent what that to happen. First, let us elect development-oriented leaders. It's an opportunity this time that we elect local leaders that really help the community. That's, I think, our best effort now is to do that. And second is, I think we have to mobilize the civil society organizations, non-NGOs, and also professors like you or students and so on. I think you have a very important role to play if we monitor what is happening in the LGU and see to it that whatever plan that it is, there's a well-planned development. I mean, the development plan is there, and that it will be implemented properly. Then I think we will not be able to eradicate corruption, but at least it will have to the minimum level of corruption will occur. Thank you.
Thank you so much po, Prof. Tayo and Dr. Avila. Now we have, I think, last question na po. Considering the need for technical know-how of some of the LGU as to the formulation of their DTP, what will happen if the approved DTP of certain LGU does not really capture the precise needs of the LGU po?
Parang I'm not really sure where this is coming from, no? Pero when you formulate plans, relating hindi mo naman basta ginagawa yan, ano? And sure, of course, relevant study, no? Yung due diligence na sinasabi, you will have to factor it in the formulation of the and there will be no other source or reference for that matter, no, other than the needs of the LGU. In the first place, it's difficult to invent, no, needs of the LGU. It may not be as precise, or perhaps you're referring to priorities. Hindi yung pinaka-priority siguro yung mapopondohan. But if we say na hindi yung needs mismo ng LGU yung magiging content ng DTP, to my mind that might be extreme, no, an observation, no. So one way to ensure that the priorities of the communities will find its way in the DTP is precisely to engage, no, those who will be involved in the formulation of the DTP. So, kasama na dyan yung pagpili ng mga tamang mga leader na sinasabi ni Sir Tony kanina, no? But apart from that, when they are already elected, you have your local your people's organizations, you have your NGOs there. I'm sure, of course, you have a way of engaging your local government leaders, no, especially through your universities, through your schools. So, makialam kayo so that at least the result of the DTP will capture, no, the needs of the local government unit. I'm not sure if Director Anas is still there. No, there's a request for response. No, but
again, thank you so much, Prof. Tayo. If you wish to add po, Dr. Avila.
Yeah, I share the concern of Yami about the question, but of course, I really hope that the people involved going to prepare the DPP will follow the guidelines. Andun mga details, andun, mga forms, etc. So, lahat ng details ay ando doon na eh. So, all you have to do is follow all the guidelines prepared by the ILG and BBN, BUF, and so on. And of course, yung IRR ng EO 138 and so on. Basta gawin lang talaga in accordance with what the guideline says, then I think we are good. However, ang problema lang talaga dyan is kung gagawin lang for compliance purposes, yun ang problema. Diba? I mean, I really hope na hindi ganun. Kasi otherwise, yun nga, magiging problema yung inasabi ni Yami. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Avila and Professor Tayo for responding to the last question. We're very sorry, Mr. Uriel from Cagayan de Oro Press Club. Miss Ana Bonagua is currently not here at the Zoom conference. Okay. Since we don't have any questions na po, once again, thank you so much to our esteemed speakers, Professor Edmond and Dr. Antonio Avila. Also to our very insightful panelists, Ms. Veron Haitoses, Ms. Miki Monterde, Ms. Ana Bonagua, and Dr. Lorenzo Dinlayan. Now to finally end this event, may we now call on the Philippine country representative of Hans Seidel Stiftung, Mr. Guts Heineke, for his closing remarks.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Also on behalf of the German Hans Seidel Foundation, I think this was really an impressive morning, and I want to congratulate you for all these fruitful and interesting discussions. I mean, for me, I'm a foreigner here in the country. I really learned a lot this morning, and as I said already, it was impressive. I just wonder a little bit, even as representative of the Hans Seidel Foundation, how long will this implementation take? How long will we be busy with this discussions about the Mandanas-Garcia ruling? I mean, are we talking of 10 years, 20 years? Will it ever stop? I absolutely don't know, but I can promise you already, Prof. Ed, that we will continue as Hans Seidel Foundation to support the discussions on this Mandana ruling, because we agree with you that this is a huge challenge for the country, and it might mean a lot. So having said that, in order to close, also from our side, thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you very much to our partner, the Pimentel Institute for Leadership and Governance. Of course, thank you very much for Professor Tayo and the Local Government Development Foundation. Of course, we will continue in the future. Also, thank you very much to all of you that collaborated in this morning conference. So the League of Cities, of Provinces and Councillors, the Bukit Non-State University, Department of Political Science in San Beda University, the political science students of the Mindanao Network, the Power of Filipino Youth, and last but not least, the DOTP, the law offices. One last thing, yeah, Clarice has posted already in the chat box. Can you please participate in a very short and very easy survey? This is a little bit a requirement of the Hans Seidel Foundation, because that will help us to fund more activities in the future. So please, when you see in the chat box, there was a link to us, very easy and short survey. It will only cost you less than 1 minute, I would say. Please participate in that survey. That will help us for more activities in the future. Having said that, I know it's lunchtime, so I wish you all a successful lunch. Thank you very much once again, and from the bottom of my heart, it was really an impressive and good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Savana. Thank you so much, Goetz Heineke.
Again, thank you so much, Mr. Guts Heineke, the Philippine country representative of the Hans Seidel Stiftung, for that insightful remarks to end today's fruitful discussion. And again, we would like to
Tayo,
ask the participants po. Yes po.
wala pa tayong picture, Kai.
Yes po. Ask the participants to open their cameras for a photo opportunity.
All right, for our first page, smile. For our second page, smile. For our third page, smile. Okay, wala na pong naka-on cam. Fourth page, and fifth. Right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Yeah. Okay. Again, thank you so much. We would like to extend our gratitude towards our esteemed speakers, Professor Edmond Tayo, Dr. Antonia Avila, our panelists, Ms. Nikki Monterde on behalf of Ms. Veron Haitoses, Ms. Ana Bonagua, and Dr. Lorenzo Dinlayan III, and most especially to our guests and participants who have been with us and gave their interactive participation for today's discussion.
Once again, I'm Kiriel Tolete.
And I am Jewel Alafane, and we have been your host for today's session regarding the Mandanas-Garcia ruling and the local governance in 2022 elections.
Again, thank you so much, and we are hoping to have you with us again in yet another discussion on local governance and beyond. Stay safe po, everyone.
Salamat.
Thank you.
For Mr. Uriel from Cagayan de